Hi, my name is John Jones, and for my Psych 502 report, I decided to rate Polyamory in the 21st Century, Love and Intimacy with Multiple Partners, written by Dr. Deborah Anapol. Dr. Anapol is a relationship coach that has specialized in working with people in poly relationships for the last 30 years. This book was written in 2010 and intended for a general audience as well as people who already practice polyamory. I am in the second group, since I have been in a polyamorous relationship with my girlfriend for the last 3 years. And I just wanted to learn more about this concept and its history, so I'm getting credit for it, aren't I? Anyway, the book begins by describing the many different forms that a polyamorous relationship can take. For example, I consider myself to be in an intimate network since my girlfriend has another full-time partner aside from myself. This can be contrasted with an open relationship, wherein two people in a romantic relationship have extra sexual partners outside of their relationship. In an intimate network, although there's another person outside of a two-person relationship, both of these relationships are romantic in nature, instead of rather purely sexual. I'll use a three-person example for my intimate network, since that best relates to my situation. They can grow to include any number of partners in any form of connection, as I've tried to illustrate in this six-person intimate network. To go back to the idea of the three-person intimate network, a triad is a variation wherein one person in the relationship sees every other person as a romantic, if not a sexual, partner. Swinging involves two couples, at least two couples, who then proceed to have sexual or romantic relationships with one another. These are just a few of the many different forms that a polyamorous relationship can take. And what's even interesting above all is that even if you are in a relationship with only one other person, you can still consider yourself to be polyamorous if you allow for the possibility that in the future there may be extra people in your relationship. Although the term polyamory was coined in the late 1980s, the book provides a wide array of evidence that people have been engaging in consensual, non-monogamous relationships for a long time across different cultures. This is represented in both their actual histories and in their mythologies. For example, take the Greek goddess Aphrodite, or consider many Indian legendary queens who had more than one husband, or Krishna who had more than 1,000 wives. What I personally found very interesting was that in 19th century America, polyamorous communities were founded and based on progressive Christian ideologies. For example, the Oneida community was based around the idea of free love, which they partially defined as freeing women from the possessiveness of marriage. The book also details several different motivations as to why a person would decide to start labeling themselves as polyamorous. For example, it could just be naturally occurring. For example, someone's in a monogamous relationship and they decide that they have fallen in love with someone outside of their relationship while they still also love their partner. Or a single person can decide that they've fallen in love with two different people simultaneously. Additionally, people who hold values such as equality, inclusiveness, and sex positivity, to name a few, find the poly lifestyle very interesting and inviting. Additionally, some people practice polyamory for spiritual reasons. In Europe, polyamory is actually a common political statement. One thing that I found especially interesting is that sexual minorities, especially gay men, who have been practicing non-monogamy for longer than the current polyamory movement has been around, don't see themselves as part of this movement because they see it as mostly heterosexuals and bisexuals. Thus, even if they do practice non-monogamy in some form, gay men are not as likely to label themselves as polyamorous. As for ethics in polyamorous relationships, Dr. Anapol has a fairly straightforward rule that I also agree with wholeheartedly. If something's a bad practice in a monogamous relationship, chances are it's not going to be a good one in a polyamorous relationship either. The book also goes into a great amount of detail describing the many challenging aspects of maintaining a polyamorous lifestyle, such as learning how to properly and healthily deal with jealousy, learning how to equally distribute time amongst partners so that everybody feels equally loved and satisfied, the challenges associated with raising a child in a polyamorous environment, and the section that I found most relevant and interesting for myself, coming out as polyamorous. I hadn't previously likened the idea of coming out as polyamorous as a parallel to coming out as gay or bisexual, but after I took a class last semester where we covered a unit on concealable stigma, I realized that the reasons that I decided to selectively disclose the fact that I was polyamorous with people were a pretty close match for the reasons that people who were gay decided to selectively disclose that their sexual orientation to people. Coming out as polyamorous is still a huge challenge in today's society because people have been culturally conditioned to accept that monogamy is the only acceptable standard for a romantic relationship. Additionally, when people hear about polyamory, they tend to think about negative stereotypes, such as patriarchal polyamory, the system of polyamory practiced by some Mormons and Muslims, where one man dominates a number of submissive wives. Due to the negative attitudes towards polyamory in our society, people who are open about their polyamorous relationships run the risk of being socially shunned, being morally condemned, losing their children, and losing significant career options. Thus, many polyamorous individuals either try and hide their polyamorous relationships from people, even people that they care about closely, or they try and force themselves into monogamous relationships and find themselves unhappy and unsatisfied. Although the vast majority of my friends who know about my poly lifestyle have always been supportive of me, I can personally attest to the fact that sometimes coming out as poly, or worse, being outed as poly, can be very stressful and very messy. However, in the end, it always does feel better to just have it out there and not have to hide it anymore. Anyway, moving on from what I clearly thought was the most interesting topic covered, Dr. Anapol is admittedly biased in favor of the poly lifestyle. This bias, though, does not take away the fact that she has worked clinically with people in poly relationships for the last 30 years. She's organized and attended a multitude of gatherings and conferences for poly people, and aside from being a practitioner of polyamorous relationships herself for the last 30 years, she's one of the founders of the polyamory movement in America as we know it today. Due to the unfortunate lack of empirical research on polyamory at this point in time, Dr. Anapol uses a lot of anecdotes in order to describe concepts and to make points throughout her book. While I'd always rather have some empirical research to back an argument within an anecdote, Dr. Anapol is also able to use historical evidence to back her arguments very well. And when she does have empirical research available on some topic, such as the ineffectiveness of monogamy, she's able to very effectively integrate that into her argument, such as the finding by Dr. James Prescott that cultures with more punitive and unaccepting views on extramarital sex are more violent and have more personal crime in general. One of the things that Dr. Anapol is able to do most effectively in this book is use historical evidence alongside modern marriage and divorce statistics to make the case that monogamy is not the natural human standard for romantic relationships. Additionally, she outlines many of the harmful consequences of forcing monogamy onto yourself or onto a partner. One of my particular favorite instances in this book of Dr. Anapol taking apart a theory regarding monogamy as superior relationship style involves Dr. David Buss, who you should remember from the sexual strategies theory that was part of our motivation unit. Dr. Buss argued that jealousy is hardwired into our brains because jealous individuals were more likely to pass on their genetic material than non-jealous individuals because the jealous individuals would kill the non-jealous individuals. He further argued that jealousy is currently useful in our brains today because it promotes sexual exclusivity, otherwise known as monogamy. Dr. Anapol tears this theory apart in great detail, which is very enjoyable to me because I tend to think that most evolutionary psychology is a load of crap. Overall, what I enjoyed most about this book was Dr. Anapol's ability to create an expansive picture of polyamory using historical evidence and the accounts of a huge number of people across several different cultures. Although I don't exactly see the point myself in practicing polyamory, for spiritual reasons or for a political statement. It was very interesting for me to learn that people do that. Another thing that I really like about the book is that while Dr. Anapol is clearly in favor of the poly lifestyle, she's able to objectively communicate to the reader the many challenges of being in a poly relationship. Also, just like acknowledging that monogamy is not for everybody, Dr. Anapol acknowledges many times that polyamory is not for everybody. Although this is hardly Dr. Anapol's fault, as I mentioned before, there's still a lack of empirical research on poly relationships, so the book unfortunately does lack some empirical support. Also, although this is more of a personal quirk, Dr. Anapol heavily uses attachment theory, which I also do not really care for, although I don't dislike it to the extent that I do any kind of evolutionary psychology. All in all, I would definitely recommend this book to anybody wondering what polyamory is, or to anybody who's interested in the many issues that surround polyamory in today's society. I'm actually already scheduled to loan this book out to 2 different people, my girlfriend, and then one of my close friends' moms. To finish this video, I'd like to read the last couple of lines of polyamory in the 21st century because I feel like they very poignantly describe my own feelings towards polyamory. There's no doubt that polyamory presents multiple challenges to those attempting to practice it. The stakes are high when we put our hearts, minds, and bodies on the line, but the reality is that refusing to do so is becoming increasingly untenable. Well, thank you for watching my report, and have a good what's left of the summer.